Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
There we go. Worked. You want to use yourself a console?
Triangle. Oh, okay.
Uh,
Turn off my volume.
No,
I'm gonna.
you have to disconnect audio.
It's,
I was doing
so
this like,
Dennis, are you going to go to Spaceport?
yep.
Good.
it's just yeah.
Oh, it's working now. No. Okay.
Just turn off your. When you rejoin, just don't join.
That worked.
No audio. All right. Well, Ben wrote. This is my first time doing a safety review for Spaceport. Andrew is here because he's our propulsion lead. But what are the steps you normally go through so I can have that ready to go?
Normally, we want to see the rocket, and we want to start from one end and go to the other end.
Got it. Do you
And
need everything perfectly assembled, or can it just be in its parts?
ideally, it would have been assembled, and we would take it apart. But if it's in part, and we can talk about recovery and that sort of stuff, then that'll do.
Sure, that seems to work fine. I left it in parts so you could see the parts first, but it's we can go through that segment first. So you said we'll start with recovery stuff, right?
Yeah, that's fine. I don't. It's your pick. You can start with recovery, propulsion, electronics, and
All right, let's start with recovery because that's all out and that's all unpacked right now.
Okay,
Do you want me to just run you through it how I would as an RSO, at an RSO or something?
right, exactly.
Okay, perfect. So, um,
Hey, Andrew.
Andrew's here. He's going to be our webcam on his camera for a little bit. He'll show
Okay.
you all the different parts and all the different things. So recovery is basically standard dual deployment and dual separation, dual deployment. So at Apogee, we have our drogue chute come out that's done via two black powder charges. One is a main, one's a backup. 1 second later, so our primary black powder charge, or let me back up for a second. The black powder charges that start this whole process are made up of about 6-inch vinyl tubes with a 3-inch inner diameter. The bottom is plugged with hot glue, filled with the appropriate amount of black powder, and sealed off with a little bit of dog barf and electrical tape, things like that. And then it's sealed off with electrical tape. That igniter goes in there. We use one of those E-matches, and it sits at the top of the black powder. Because we've seen people do that on the forum, and we've tested a few of them, and they work. Yeah, and yeah, so it burns all the way through, so we waste less powder. It seems. Okay, so that's what starts it off. We use a 5.5 gram charge as our main, and the 6 gram, sorry, primary, and our 6 gram charge as our backup. And that pushes out 30 feet of 1/2 inch tubular Kevlar, part of an ultimate harness. So that is all Kevlar, and it contains a 120-inch Cert 3 XXL. Cert 3 XXL over there. That's wrapped, like the completely packed, and then it's wrapped within the burrito of the Nomex blanket, and that's a 30 by 30 Nomex blanket that's been flown 2 or 3 times. We don't see any fraying, no burn throughs, no issues on that one at all. So that's the
Uh, okay.
Nomex one.
Well, okay. That's the drogue, right?
This is the
This
main
is the main.
parachute.
This is the main parachute.
The
Okay. How big
drogue is
was it?
packed. It's a Cert 3 XXL from Skyang.
Okay. What's the descent rate on the main?
On the main, we descend at 19 feet per second, and that's been verified through actual flight tests.
Okay. All right. And let me see the shock cords. Andrew, if you can sort of zoom in, just like
Yep.
we did with Andrew, just like we did with SLI.
Yep. Yep. Here, you want to hold this and all.
Yeah.
All right. So
Well,
here's the main shock cord.
So that's the
Okay.
main shock cord you're seeing. And then I can show you how it's Z-folded together. This is 30 feet of shock cord, and we use Z-folds that are taped. And I'll show you that on the drogue in just a moment once he's done going through the shock cord. Those
Okay.
tape sections just keep it together a little bit better when you're packing, and hopefully allow some of the shock to be dissipated through tearing the tape. And that
Correct.
just
Okay.
a little bit of the edge off.
Other
All
than,
right.
It's a bit black from charges. There's no fraying or anything on this thing.
Okay.
It's pretty new.
If you want to fold the
And
Z
that-
fold down too,
Default.
like over there on the joke cord.
Alright.
Oh.
All right.
And then over here is just a sample of how we fold the shot cord in. So we have packets like these that are bundled 2 to 5 times, just depending on how much length we have left. And they're taped, and both of the tails go out the same way. Both of the tails
Okay.
go off the same way so that they can rip through it more easily.
Okay. And what's this on the drogue? And what's the drogue descent rate?
The drogue descent rate is 90 feet per second. Again, we've test flown it 4 times this semester.
It's a 24-inch drogue.
Yeah, 24-inch recon
Oh,
recovery
oh.
drogue.
Okay. And no burn holes.
No burn holes, no nothing on that one.
Yeah, this one.
Okay.
On our
What
last
about-
flight, the main parachute, the Cert3X XL that you were seeing in there, that did have a couple burn throughs, just like small, less than a dime size. So I'm just gonna replace it for Spaceport so that it has no issues. But
Or you can always repair it. I personally don't have a problem with repairs if they're done right, as Andrew knows. You know, so if you don't have to spend the money to replace it, I wouldn't spend the money, I'd repair it. But if
I
it's
mean,
got
we
a-
we
already
have
have
last
one,
year's, so
yeah.
yeah, if it's got a big tear or something like that, you know, that's one thing, but if it's got a couple of small burn holes the size of a dime, I would repair, but
Yeah.
your choice.
for now we have last year's that has no issues. So
Okay, all right, let's look at the electronics board.
yep. I'm gonna pull a screwdriver out to make life easy as I do that.
And while you're doing that, are you guys going for 30 or 10K?
10K,
10K.
SRAD.
Oh, what happened to your?
Okay,
10K SRAD, yeah. You can
Gotcha.
still see me and hear me fine, right?
yes.
So on this end, this is the end that opens up. This is towards the top. Normally we put 2 5/16 nuts on here just to make my life easier right now. There's just one on each side of the rod to keep the bulkhead
That's
down.
Fine.
Which one of these was beeping at me? Okay, so this is the electronics bay. It is a little bit messy right now with wire management because we have these harnesses in here. These were harnesses used in a battery test. They'd be eliminated and the wires would just connect straight to the flight computers themselves. Out on the front, farthest away from the rail is our radio beacon and our featherweight altimeter, sorry, featherweight GPS, which is on 915A right now. And then a Blue Raven is here. This is purely for data logging. This thing does not have any charges attached to it at all. It's just there for the ride and to collect all the accelerometer data and tilt data.
Okay,
On the far side, on the back, is where I put the 2 deployment Easy Minis. Both have a drogue charge and a main charge. The top one's the primary one. The bottom one's the backup one. Each one, or sorry, the backup one fires 1 second after the primary. The Easy Minis I
Okay.
just put on this side to make cables a little easier so I don't confuse like charge wires with everything else.
okay, what
And again,
altitude does
Sorry?
the main come out at?
1,000 feet with the backup at 900 feet.
Okay, very good. Show me how your batteries are mounted.
So this is one battery right here. As you can see, it's in this box and it's screwed down with 3 screws. It's in there and
Okay.
it's one of the Altus Metrum lipos. So it's one of those. And then this is going to be harder to see, but down in here where my screwdriver is pointing is a small compartment under this panel right here. There's a panel that connects to it in there. And there's 2 screws holding 3 batteries in place. 4 batteries in place. 1 for the tracker, 1 for the Blue Raven, 1 for the radio beacon, and 1 for the other Easy Mini.
Okay, what kind of batteries are those?
Okay, so the battery for the 2 featherweight products are the batteries that come with them, the 400 milliamp hour batteries, LiPo batteries.
Okay,
And then the 2 Easy Minis use the 2 850 milliamp hour LiPos that Wildman sells that are supposed to go with the Altus Spectrum products.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
And let me see. Flip it. Your charge wells. I could go back and describe how your charges are going to be set up.
Yeah, so I didn't bring any, but you can imagine a vinyl tube that's 6 inches long with an inner diameter of 3/8 inches. That vinyl
Oh,
tube
okay.
is plugged at the bottom with hot glue and everything, and then you fill the rest with black powder, some dog barf on top with the igniter, and then just electrical tape to secure everything in
Okay.
place.
Okay. I thought I heard when you initially described it as 3-inch diameter, and I'm going.
No,
That didn't make sense.
3/8. My
That's
apologies.
better. Okay,
Yeah.
that's better. All right. The other
Yeah.
question I got for you is I see it all the time, and I'm sure Dennis sees it too, is why don't you cut body threaded rods to the correct length?
I cut them excessively long. I'm not sure why, to be honest. The other side I cut nicely. These I just felt were more secure. I'm not sure why, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah.
You never experienced a tangle or anything like that?
No.
They
By the
all do
time
it,
it
Dennis.
the length of the threaded rod that sticks out is like 1.5 to 2 inches. And by that time, the U-bolt on there is like almost an inch. The U-bolt itself is almost the length of the extra threaded rod, and then we have a giant 1/4 inch quick link that attaches to here. So there's no cables going around these extra threaded rods, so I didn't even think it's an issue.
Okay. I'm just curious. Uh, okay.
Is that
Where
something you want changed?
No.
Okay.
It's an observation, and I I personally cut them, you know, to the length I need. I don't like things sticking out like that, but that's me. So if it works for you and you in the past, don't change it. Okay, I'm a firm believer in if it works alone. If you know what I
Yeah.
mean. In your drogue and main setup and your recovery setup, can you explain where you put swivels?
Sorry,
If you
could you
have
repeat that?
Sure,
Oh, swivels.
swivels.
Yeah, so the drogue chute and the main chute themselves, they sell them with a swivel that's integrated into it. Those are the only places we have swivels. Anytime I try to put a swivel somewhere else, it tangles everything up pretty bad. So these are the only swivels attached on there.
And this is how we've been flying this recovery setup for almost 3 years now.
3 years.
So
Yeah.
haven't had really any issues with that.
That's fine. Swivels are a thing of some like them, some don't. You know,
Yeah.
some put them at the fin cable, some put them at the parachute level. I saw one team last year that had a swivel every connection, which was kind of like, but anyway, okay. That more of a curiosity. Andrew, can you bring your electronics bay back up for me? And Andrew, you know what I'm going to do? Can you
Yeah.
flip it over so I can see the wiring? Yeah. Do you have? I guess since you don't really have it set up for, as it's going to be a spaceport, right?
Yeah.
It might,
No,
yeah.
I
They've
mean, I
got
can
ex-
plug this
they've
JST
got ex-
directly in.
they've got extra wires in there because they were doing a battery test recently.
Yeah, yeah. What I like to do, and what both Aaron and I did at SOI a few weeks ago, was pull on wires.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And every
tugging on this with some pretty hard
I
force
good,
doesn't
good.
come out
It
at
does.
all. Same thing with the
Yeah,
bottom one. There is a little bit of slack built into them just in case
that's
anything
fine.
does move around,
That's good.
but that's about it. Like the battery doesn't come out. Well, I just yanked it out. It shouldn't come out. Nothing's pulling on it. Yeah.
Well, he asked on a comment, and Andrew will shake his head yes. Is every electronics we touched at SLI, we could pull the wires out at
Okay.
some
Yeah.
point. Okay, so Beaver probably get hit with that in New
Yep.
Mexico.
Yep. I do the pull test
It-
on my own before I wire anything. So
I understand, but transportation and everything else, things do shake loose. Okay, that sounds good. So where is your payload going to be?
all right, so the payload's in the nose cone. If you have specific questions on that, I'll probably defer to Nathan Roy a little bit. He's our payload lead, but you can definitely see that there. He'll explain if you have more specific questions.
Okay, the only question I got on that, is it deployable or is it going to be contained?
It is deployable, yeah.
It is deployable, okay. I don't really, don't take this the wrong way, Nathan. I don't really care what it's gonna do functionally. I give a hoot about how it's gonna affect safety. And how it's going to provide and how you're gonna guarantee it's not going to drop on somebody's head.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
if you could describe that for me, that will be great. And then we can move on.
Yep, yeah. So the system we're using is very similar to last year. Essentially this metal, it's just there to make sure the system gets powered on properly and is held in place and all that kind of stuff. And then you can kind of see it poking out. There's like a 3D printed part in here, and that's what actually comes out. And so the way this works is we have a couple of retention monofilament lines. You can kind of see there. They hold it in place. And then on the back, we have some nichrome cutters. The nichrome's not in there right now, but that basically gets wrapped around the line. And so when we fire the nichrome, those release. And then the parachute is also held in place by those lines. So as soon as the lines release and the deployed part is capable of coming out, the parachute's already deployed. And the parachute is part of what helps pull the system out. So it's basically not going to deploy, or it's going to deploy with its parachute. We've flown that 3 times now. We haven't had any issues with it. It's pretty reliable. And then there's basically a bulkhead that sits on top of here that connects to a shock cord going to the nose cone. So the nose cone stays on. There's no risk of that coming down on its own. It's connected to the same parachute that everything else is. The descent rate's roughly 18 feet per second on the deployed payload. There's no drogue or anything like that. It's just straight to the main. Yeah, I think that's most of the main things.
Okay, and it deploys at main or at apogee?
It deploys at 15,000 feet.
1,500.
Sorry, 1,500 feet. Yeah, just before main deployment, but still while the rocket.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
Tracking.
And I assume if it doesn't deploy for some reason, even though you got 3 out of 3, if it doesn't deploy for some reason, that the parachutes are sized, the main is sized to handle the extra weight.
Yeah, that won't be an issue. We're on the low end of the spectrum. Like the Cert 3X XL is weighted for something like 60 to 160 pounds or something like that. We're only flying at like 88 pounds on our heavy side. So
88 with the motor in it.
with the motor
and
as
then
well.
we blow like 20 pounds of prop.
Yeah.
And the deployed payload only weighs like 2 or 3. So it's not a whole lot of weight to begin with.
Well, that's why 8.5 pounds at least, right?
No, but most of the weight is in the frame that's not deployed. And then
Yeah, so the metal box weighs roughly like 7.5 pounds. And then the part that's removed fills in the rest. So the actual heavy part fills the CubeSat requirement, but it stays in the rocket.
Oh, that's interesting. I would double check with.
Yeah, so
Payload
there's a
on
rule that talks about you can have a mounting object that can fill your weight as long as it meets the CubeSat standard. It's something we confirmed last year, and we're reusing the system again this year.
Very good. Okay. All right. I mean, I'm not a payload judge. I don't really care. So my only concern, my only concern is safety. So,
Fair enough, yeah.
you guys have been through the drill before, so you know. But that's the first time I've heard of. Okay. All right. That's different. Good. All right. I'm happy that I don't see any problems with that at all. Okay. Let's move on to, we've been through the electronics bay, nose cone, parachute, sleds. Show me shear pin sizes, where they're at. Show me what's coupler lengths are to make sure we're within the rules of the.
Yeah, so I'll start at
Oh,
the
the
top since
detect-
that's hard. What's up? Sorry.
I said, show me shear pins and make sure coupler sizes are correct.
Yeah, sure. So I'll start at the top here. The first connection is between this coupler and the nose cone here. It uses everywhere on the rocket uses 2 440 nylon shear pins with about a breaking strength of about 50 pounds. There's 2 shear pins that connect this nose cone to this coupler right here. This coupler length is half a caliber, 3 inches. I believe the rule about the couplers, they changed it a couple of times this year, but they specified for the nose cone that in the nose cone specifically, it can be less than half a caliber. This is the same coupler that we flew last year for 4 test flights this year, so we didn't have any issues with bending that we noticed or we saw. It was pretty stiff on the ground anyway, but just to make sure with the rule, it was fine. The next connection that is shear pinned together, you can still see. Okay, is this coupler length, which is the bottom half of the payload coupler, to the top of the main tube here, where this black tape goes around. We connect 6 shear pins here. The main reason why we're using those 6 440 nylon shear pins is just to make sure that this 11-pound payload, when the drogue deploys, we have this 11-pound payload up there, and it'll create a lot of, I guess, momentum going that way. We want to make sure it doesn't break here, so we're using 6 shear pins here.
6 4
Okay, very nice.
Yeah.
Okay,
Going down the line, the connection between the eBay coupler. Oh, I forgot to mention. I don't know if you can tell. That's a full 6 inches there. Same thing here. We have 2 joints with full 6 inches. It does not separate on this end. This end
Okay.
connects to the main body tube using 2 quarter 20 bolts, and those are of course metal, and they thread into these threaded inserts, which are also on the inside. They're epoxy down. They've flown a few times and haven't had any issues there.
okay,
Back here, we have another 6-inch coupler, and it uses four more 440 shear pins, and that connects into the drogue tube, and the drogue tube has those same holes for the 440 shear pins. And then from there on, everything stays connected. So this hole connects to 2 quarter 20 holes on the air brake, which is mounted into the fin can. And then the air brake itself connects to the fin can using 2 more quarter 20 bolts, which also thread into those same adhesive nuts you saw in the eBay.
okay. All right, let's, that all sounds fine. Let me see here. Okay, let's move on to the airworks. Oh, how much, what is the recovery cord length, at apogee between, after separation? How long is that?
So our drogue parachute at Apogee contains a 70-foot recovery line, and then the main is 30 feet.
Well, it's 70 feet and then an extra like 10 or 12
Yeah.
feet for the Y harness too. So
Yeah, okay. Very good.
That was a concern we had with the large payload at
Yes.
MDRA.
Yep, that's exactly right. And I cringe when I see specifications that, oh, it's 3 feet.
It's a little scary.
Put at least as on that and maybe double it. But yeah, we're from experience and talking to everybody, that drone deployment shock cord needs to be at least, sounds like really needs to be, he says probably 90% of the payloads are up in the nose cone. So you're flinging
Yeah.
at 8.5 out and it's flying. It's not going at a very slow pace. So yeah, okay. Air brakes. I should have known. Okay, can you describe the operations of the air brakes for me, please? And how they're going to work?
Can you describe the operation of the air brake, please, and Hunter?
So a linear actuator moves a plate up and down in here, and that plate has 4 rods, threaded rods connected to it. Each threaded rod is connected to one of these flaps, so as the plate moves down, it pushes these flaps out, and they all move at the same time. So if something happens and the plate doesn't move, none of these flaps are moving, they all move at the same, like no moment can be created. And if one fails, they'll all fail inward.
Okay. And when do you actually deploy the air brakes?
The deployment phase starts 1 second after motor burnout.
After motor burnout. So they'll stay closed until motor burnout.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And I assume you have test flown them, correct?
We have what? Test flown
You
them?
have
Yeah.
Okay, and they worked?
Yep.
Okay.
Just say yes. It's for before.
Well, it's, the history of air brakes at the concert is not very good, so.
Yeah.
A lot of schools have been trying them and not very successful, so. Okay, all right, my main concern is they will return to a neutral position if something happens, and then certainly, they will not be deployed until after detection of burnout. Okay, and I assume all that is done through some sort of an SRAD type environment, right? It's
Yeah.
computer,
Yeah.
quite computer. Okay, all right. I guess we can go down to the tail now and the fins.
Should we keep the air brake on? Would you like that removed so you can see more of it? I feel like removing it
Keep
would
it
be
on.
easier.
Whatever, whatever convenient for you.
What you just saw is the Y harness as well. So that Y harness connects down into the fin can. It's this thing, and if you want to get closer, this is basically the same fin can as last year, just rebuilt. So starting with the recovery loads, this is the fin can, sorry, what's it called? Y harnesses, and they connect to two ginormous eyebolts down there that are rated for 3,500 pounds. It's overkill, but it works. Those recovery loads are distributed throughout the entire motor mount itself. So when we assembled the motor mount, there's two threaded rods that connect to the two eye bolts, and those threaded rods go down through the entire length. And at the bottom, they're connected to the thrust plate at the bottom, which is currently covered in tape, but you can see parts of it down here. And that's one of the threaded rods that goes through the entire length of the motor mount. There are three centering rings. Two of them sandwich the fins, and one of them floats at the top. It's epoxied in there, but it's just not sandwiching anything. And the fins are through the wall. They have 1-inch fin tabs, and they're mounted inside the fin can with internal fillets made of ES6209, and then external fillets as well made of thickened ES6209. And what else? The fins are made of G10 fiberglass. They're all 1/4 inch thick. The flutter safety factor is like 2.5 right now, I
That's
think.
good.
Yeah. So those are the main things about the fin can. Yeah.
Okay, okay, okay. So the fin tabs all the way through to the motor mount?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. And you're stretching the cord from where they're mounted down there all the way up through. Okay, I see what you're doing. That goes up through the air brakes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's-
the air brake doesn't take any load
Yeah.
from recovery.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I understand. Okay, the eye bolts that you have all the way down there, are they the forged eye bolts or
Yeah.
they are forged? Okay, so if I put a flashlight on that and I look down there, I'll see forged.
Yeah.
They're really
Okay.
they're like $20 a pop
Yeah.
too. They're like really
Yeah,
fancy
I
eye
know.
nuts.
Yep, no comment. You know, you can find a lot cheaper ones out too, but the thing is that, from my personal thing, I really like the that kind of thing, the loop type of thing, but not the single eyeballs. But anyway, we'll go on. We'll move on. What motor? S-Ride motor,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which you have provided a static fire for, correct?
Yep. Yep.
And rated at,
Casing is right there.
huh? Oh, it's right.
Yeah, this is the casing.
Okay, let me back up to the boot section. Is that a carbon tube that you rolled, or is that?
Yeah,
what's
it's a
going-
rolled carbon tube with another rolled carbon fiber motor mount that's 98 millimeters in diameter.
And you did compression testing on it?
We've done
We've-
compression testing
yeah.
in the past, but we've never had any issues in flight, basically. We've been using the same amount of layers of carbon and fiberglass, and in compression testing, they failed at like weight like above 10,000 pounds each, basically. So
Okay, but the important thing is you have. Because you're supposed to actually compression test, whether you're using the same thing as Okay, just, I'm not gonna worry about it. But be aware you may get asked all kinds of questions at New Mexico about that, so talk fast,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Do you have
It-
another piece of tube, guys?
you know, so,
No.
guys, I think according to rules, it is supposed to be compression tested before the contest.
that's new.
That
I've never
might
heard
be
of
new.
that.
I didn't hear
Is
about
it new?
that.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
At least in previous years, we haven't been asked about it, so. Yeah, I guess we'll take a look through the DTAG and see if we can find
Take a
anything.
look and just, Jeff, the motor, can I see the S-Rad motor real quick?
Yeah, this is just the casing. I can
Yeah,
grab
that's
nozzle.
okay.
It's just
Yeah,
a Fisher 98 6-grain case.
That's
Pretty
fine.
basic.
Okay, all right. We'll trust Fisher.
Yeah. And we hydrostatically tested it to 1500 PSI and we're running at like 800, so
Okay, all right,
more than enough.
all right. I, I'm happy. I don't see anything. Be aware of, like I say, I believe that hand rolled tubes are supposed to be compression tested, but double check that to be sure. Everything
Yeah,
else
we will.
looks, everything else looks straightforward. I've got the SRAD data. That's all I need on that. I saw the video on that already. You got any questions?
I don't think so.
Okay, a couple of comments in case you haven't seen the announcements. You do not need to bring tents.
Yep.
Or tables.
Yep.
Bring chairs.
Okay, we'll see. Okay.
Bring chairs.
That's good.
Bring chairs. I think, double check that in, double check that. I know tents for sure. They were talking about tables. I think we're providing tables, but maybe not.
I think that's what the announcement said.
Was just tables, or I mean, was just tents, or
Tents and
tables.
tables, I believe, is what they said. One giant, either 15 or 20-foot tent, and then two 10-foot tables or two 8-foot tables, something like that.
Yeah, they're basically, yeah, Andrew's been there. They're gonna tent the whole parking lot area. That's what they're going to do. With
A
the
big
big
improvement.
circus, with the big circus, it's circus in the sense, not round, but rectangular tents.
Yeah.
Professionally down so they don't blow away in the wind.
They blow away.
We broke a whole canopy last year. Yeah.
Oh
so-
yeah, I mean, I could sit there and watch tents go flying across. I think they were more of a projectile than the actual rockets were. I mean,
Yeah,
the wind can be nasty. I assume on all your sims that you took wind into account, various levels of
Yeah.
wind, like 10, 15, 20. You know,
Yeah,
types of
average
stuff.
is 15 so far.
Okay, there will be a weather station at each of the pads. So, you know, a 20-mile-an-hour wind at the solids pads may not be a 20-mile-an-hour wind at the 2-stage pads, for instance. So, as opposed to getting it indirectly from another source. Lots of pads coming down, solid pads. Pads will be not only you will not only be able to configure them in a vertical position, but also a horizontal position, so an azimuth type of deal. So expect about the same crowd as I think we had last year, about 135 players, 135 teams, average
Do we-
8 to 10 per team.
Will there be ladders out there?
Yeah, there are ladders.
Okay.
Will there be what out there? Lights?
Ladders.
Yes, there will be.
We had to
It
specially
wa-
request a ladder last time, but it was fine.
Okay.
Yeah, it
And,
wouldn't hurt to, it wouldn't hurt to post on HeroX to get the pad guys to come up and see what size of ladders they're gonna have up there.
Okay.
Okay. Just to be on the safe side, so. On that end of it. All right. Dennis, anything?
nope, I've been watching it all year long.
I know you have. And it's good and the other thing that's really nice is they've got test flights in,
Yes, they
you know?
do.
you know, that is a big key to making a successful flight, so. They know what they have to drag out to the field and they know how the field affect whatever they're doing, so on that end of it, so. Okay. All right, I believe in the message that I sent out, I included where you need to send. You can go ahead and stop the recording if you want to.